I ring bells? I ring bells because it's enjoyable. Because it gets you thinking, and it gets you mixing with people that you might not ordinarily mix with.
Phil, Day, and also Jeffrey, they're the more experienced ringers. Because Phil's been doing it for 40 odd years now, so he's done a lot, and he knows a lot. Yes. But I think he tends to slow down a bit now, and he's had his time, you know.
I was wondering about the audience for the bell ringing.
Yes.
Do the people on the ground, do they have any idea how complicated this is?
I don't think they do. Well, you say that, my sister is now interested in coming along, and I've just asked Phil this evening if he wouldn't mind if my sister came along next week, because she's maybe interested in starting to learn the bells, because people just think that the ringing of the church bells, it's just a matter of pulling on a rope and making the bell sound. Well, I try to explain to these people that that's not the case. There's an awful lot more to ringing bells than just pulling a rope. Obviously, there's the mathematical side of it as well, and it's people get a bit confused that it's just because when I speak to people and I say I ring church bells, they look at me in a bit of a strange way, and what do you do that for? You know, all you do is swing on a rope. No, it's more than that. And I sometimes invite them to come along and have a look. And that's what my sister's doing next week. She's coming along and having a look with the intention of starting and maybe getting to learn.
So what you're doing technically, it's called change ringing, is that right? That's right,
that's change ringing, yes. The basic thing is, the first thing you do when you start to ring the bells is to learn to handle the rope. Well, when you see somebody ringing the bells by the rope, it looks quite easy until you actually have a go at it. Yes. So we start off by you have to learn to handle the rope, and then once you've done that, probably 6 months after that period, you start to learn to ring with other people. It's what we call the rounds, and then they go into the call changes where you swap the bells over individually, and then once you've learnt all that, you go into what we call the change ringing, which is quite that's where a lot of people tend to lose it and say, well, I can't understand it, but it's one of these you need to grind your way through it, and you will come at the other end, and you will learn, and you will understand what it's all about. There are a lot of people who just come to a block and just say, I can't understand, and they just leave, and you never see them again.
It's a good lesson for life, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yes,
problem solving.
It is.
What did I want to ask you? Oh yeah. So when you're ringing, I notice you looking at the other bells for the pattern. So there must be a sense of relying on the other team members to pull their weight.
Yes. When we ring a methods, each bell has got its own place to ring once. It's so you're swapping over all the time. One's following one, and then another one's following. You've got your place. Like you might follow the fourth bell. You follow the fourth bell, and then you follow the seventh bell, and then you follow the eighth bell. And you know this pattern. You learn this pattern.
It's okay. No worries. Just a movie, that's all.
Yes, you learn this pattern by looking at the book, but you have to remember it, the pattern of which bell to follow, and that's what we call changing.
Right. And the question I asked Jonathan was, then you guys want to give an interview?
No,
okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye. See you next time. I didn't really want to interview him anyway. He seemed bossy. It's Phil's tower after all.
Oh no, yes.
Anyway, That's neither here nor there. We'll edit that out. I asked Jonathan, it's a question about being English. Because in other traditions, like Russian bell ringing, there's one guy up there doing this complicated thing. But in English bell ringing, it really depends on the team. And I wondered if there's something English about that. Like,
I don't know.
working together in a...
No, I just think in England that's the way we do that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's all I know. I mean, I haven't been to other places to find out other ways of ringing. Like you say, the English way it is a team event.
Yeah.
Without other ringers, you couldn't possibly do it. You need a good band, what they call a band. Sorry.
That's okay. No worries.
What's the answer to that? I don't know.
If only he could remember.
All right.
Oh dear. Why ring bells?
To call the faithful.
To call the faithful to church. That's the proper reason. That's the real reason, isn't it? To call people to church. But once you learn, you enjoy the methods and the camaraderie and ringing the methods that we ring, different and complex.
Well, that's the thing, because people hear
Social aspect of it.
People hear it outside and they don't understand
No.
what's going on up
No,
here.
they think we press a button or flick a switch.
Yeah, because
I
it's
don't think most
really
people do realise.
it's really complex.
It is. It's an art and a science.
And
Change ringing.
how do you teach it?
Well, we break it down. Start with the backstroke. That's just this one first. Just with the learner holding this is called the backstroke, and the instructor would have the sally. This is called the sally. So the learner would get the bell raised for ringing, and the learner would just be operating this just to get the feel of it when it goes up, what it feels like, because the bell is on the balance, you see. There's only a piece of wood called a stay which holds it, stops it swinging over full circle. It'd keep going over and over and over. And if that happened, the rope would go up through the hole, you see. So it's a very fine, thin line. And so you've got bell handling, the control. You can come to grief and have all sorts of problems, you see. So we break it down, start with the backstroke. Once you've got that, then do the hand stroke, because you have to hold this and loose it and then catch it on the way up. And the decision is, of course, where to catch it. Hopefully, when you've done that enough, you put the two together. But it can take some months. It is a commitment. That's the thing. It's not something you learn in 1 or 2 weeks. And we've taught so many people, and I think it's all over the country that they say if you teach 4, if you keep 1, you'll be lucky. I mean, we've got a certificate there when we rang in the millennium. 2000, wasn't it? And Renee's on it, Tony's on it, and I'm on it. All the others don't ring anymore. Well, one's left, a couple have left the area, but none of the others ring. And when you think that was 10 years ago, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of those have given up. Out of 10, so that's not very good, is it?
Why did they give up, do you figure? Is it the commitment?
I think it probably is. Well, 2 of them left. These were young, and they just decided they didn't want to do it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It is a commitment. Practice and Sunday service. I think the bug bites or it doesn't bite. You can get interested in ringing the methods, the sequences.
Right. And
then you can go and ring at other churches. We all belong to a society, you see. And you get more interested. In my youth, in my younger days, I've been on holidays. We used to go on canal holidays, all a group of ringers every year for a long time. And, you can make a lot of friends.
Yeah.
But that is, you could ring every night of the week if you wanted to. Some people do that. Pattingham, Jeffrey and the 2 boys are from Pattingham. It's only about 4 miles down the road. So they were ringing on Monday. And Tim, who was here, went to Penn yesterday, Penn Ring on Tuesdays. St Peter's in Wolverhampton, they practice on Mondays, so you could go somewhere every night of the week if you really wanted to, if you got that interested.
So people seem really, there's a standard that everyone's trying to get here, and the tempers flare for a moment there when...
We didn't do very well striking wise. You want it to sound nice, and we had some bells hitting other bells or gaps. Did you pick up on that?
Not really.
Not really. Well, the idea is that they're all nice and even, and the changes are all crisp, no gaps. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, choppy. But when you're ringing a method, that's, as Martin said, you are trying to find your bell, aren't you? Which bell to follow, because you're uncertain, you're learning, so you can't then ring positively, can you, in place? And it's not like blowing down an instrument or plucking a string, because there's a gap, you see. You pull the bell off and it doesn't sound straight away. So if you're a little bell, you have to pull off, leaving a bigger gap over a big bell, because that bell strikes quicker. And if you're vice versa, a tenor has to follow a little bell, almost pull off at the same time, so you've got to get that worked out as well. So if you're struggling with your method, you haven't got much of a chance, have you, until you become competent and more able with the method,
and then you can concentrate on the...
Yeah. But I mean, there's lots of methods we can't ring. We've tried to ring some surprise tonight. The surprise methods are complicated, and there's hundreds of them. The sky's the limit. So you're always striving for perfection, but you never get it.
And you're limited by the ability of the rings to turn up.
Exactly. You need learners all the time. I mean, we've had some learners, but we haven't got any at the moment. They gave up, so it's an ongoing thing. There's very few good bands in this area, in the churches in this area.
From starting to ring to actually ring with a group of people, it's 12 months.
Oh, yeah, that is a commitment,
Yes.
isn't it? It's not like joining and taking part. You do it on your
it's
own.
an ongoing process.
Before you can be in the
And
group
then
properly.
as you're ringing it with the other people, it may be 12 months since you first started.
Yeah.
And then it starts to get complicated then when you start to do the methods, and that's when a lot of people have had enough now and they give up. So
The
it's
best ringing is done in the pub, isn't it?
yes.
Which is where we're going to go now.
I have one other question. I'll have lots of questions, but there must be just tons of metal up there. Is this dangerous?
Well, yeah, I suppose it is.
And I'm
dangerous.
looking at the beams here. These beams must be
Well,
what?
this church was burnt down in 1950. Was it 1950?
Rebuilt in 55?
That's an original beam.
So original would
That
be.
was charred. You could see the black charring of the fire, but it's been painted over.
So is it 200 years old or 300 years old, or?
Well,
There's a book downstairs.
It's
yes, I'm
old
not
anyway.
Sure. It is very, yeah.
I would like to.
I mean, this is a modern church, is it, when you think it was burnt down
Right.
only 50 years ago.
Right.
But there's been a church here for a long time.
Right.
There was a millennium, wasn't there? So that would date back to 1500 or something.
Right.
I think there was a
Have you seen the bells upstairs?
I haven't.
Haven't.
Would you like to have a
I would. Yeah, I would.
There's some more stairs for you to climb.
Oh, great.
At least we've got the
Are you
light.
okay with that, camera?
I think so.
If I put the light on, you might be able to take some pictures.
Yeah, I'd love
The
to.
bells are now down. I did think you'd seen them last time, actually.
Well, maybe I did come up here.
Can't find the light. Where's the light? Come on. Let's see. You can actually stand in there or put your foot on there and stand up if you want to. But be careful with
So
your
the-
head on there.
Alrighty.
You see, it's a metal frame. that
right.
holds them.
Yes, yes.
See, we pull the ropes and the ropes make the wheels turn and then the bell ring.
So now they are
Down.
at rest here.
Rest,
Yes,
The bell in the middle is the biggest one, the tenor.
right.
Can you see the big one?
Yeah.
The treble
That's-
bell, the littlest one, is over the far by the far loomer. You can't see it from where you are.
So it would be just deafening in here while you're ringing.
Oh yes.
You wouldn't want to be up here.
No.
So is that off and off?
And there's another one as well, I think a bit further on. That's
Gotcha.
it. Lovely.
Thank you. Maybe make a very interesting movie. All right.
You going
I'm sure you're anxious to have a pint, so I'll make my way down. Ow.
Still there. Especially in terms of time of operation, they want to see just what it is. So we're going to sort of lay a Sally on the floor and a picture of the bells, and then maybe the picture where we not picture the description of the bells and the inscription.
Yeah. Where on or where?
Yeah, wherever they
I haven't
go,
got
they put it, give it to them.
You put-
See what
Where
they
will
do.
the
I put them on the...
Oh, you did, did you?
They're not still there,
Not
Sue.
a key.
Well, they will be.
Yeah, I'll go on
They've
then.
not been very explicit, as usual.
Oh, you still got that little frame thing, Tony?
What little fellow?
Stephanie, did you
No,
film the bells?
I did, but they weren't moving, so it wasn't very interesting.
So you can do that on Sunday morning, maybe.
Well, I wouldn't go up there.
and
Well, they're
it's
ringing.
not,
Why? Too noisy?
And while you're doing it, you might as well include me.
Can't see you.
Look to. Trouble's going. She's gone.
probably 7, 8 years ago. I went back, and 7, 8 years on, I'm here now, carrying on from where I left off,
Right.
which I enjoy, because it's like let's say it's like a lifetime ongoing thing. You don't ever learn everything. You can never learn everything. There's always something new to learn. Once you learn one thing, you learn the next thing, and then once you've learned that, you learn the next thing, and you advance that way. And it's so like I say, it's like a lifetime ongoing thing. You don't
Right.
actually learn everything.
So are you one of the better ringers? Would you say?
Well, I wouldn't say one of the better ringers. I would say.
But there seems to be like.
Yes, there's different scales. So
Yeah.
you get the learners, the novices, like the learners, and then obviously depending on how much time and effort you put into it, you see, you tend to go up the scale a lot faster. Whereas if you're just like certain people who I shouldn't mention, they come along for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then they go missing, and then you don't see them for a month, maybe 2 months, and then they come back. Well, it's kind of like taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. You see, so if you're keen and you want to learn more and more, you have to keep coming, and also you can by learning more, you can go to other towers and learn from other people, which obviously that's a big help also. You see, so with the question of am I one of the better ringers, I would say on a scale of, let's say a scale of 1 to 10, whereas 1 is the novice and 10 is the super experience, I'd probably come in a region of about 3 to 4, I would think, because there's a lot of good ringers out there. Not so much this tower, but if you go to other towers, there's a lot of very, very experienced ringers. Phil Day and also Jeffrey, they're the more experienced ringers. Because Phil's been doing it for 40 odd years now, so he'll.
Right, Seth.
Troll's going. Go on. Not in the right place.
Well done. Well done.
Well done, Graham. Last Wednesday.
With Phil, I just asked him why does he ring bells?
You asked him why he rings bells?
Yeah, that was my starting point.
Why do I ring bells? I ring bells because it's enjoyable.
Sure.
I ring bells because it gets you thinking, and it gets you mixing with people that you might not ordinarily mix with. So, for example, who do I ring with? I ring with other school teachers, which you would normally meet, but I ring with lawyers, I ring with legal people, I ring with a guy that does cable TV, I ring with a builder, and in the circles that I mix with, you would expect to be dealing with people on an equal footing with you, and you know your place in the hierarchy. Whereas if you go and ring bells, you may find that you're ringing with a guy who builds houses for a living and is actually better than you and more organised than you and can actually put you right. And it's the sort of event, it's the sort of activity where it does break down boundaries. And I find that quite interesting, actually.
So I was just observing the practice there, and I was trying to figure out who was in charge. I mean, is it clear who's in charge? Or is that a shared responsibility? Yeah. Does it change up?
Well, no, Phil's in charge. Phil's
Right.
the tower captain.
Right.
So if he's there, he will say, let's do this, let's do that. But he does it in a very informal manner. I think he's a tower captain that likes to be the tower captain, but in some ways he will quite happily let somebody else take over. If he's not there, I'd do it. I don't know why it's me that does it, but it is me that does it. But yeah, it's very informal. If
Right.
somebody wants to do something, then quite happily let them do it. If somebody wants to ring a particular piece, there's no issue there. Everybody gets their go, everybody gets their turn, nobody misses out.
So this is a question, I know you're the guy to answer it, because I was looking at Russian bell ringing. In Russian bell ringing, there's a lot of bells and a lot of ropes and one guy pulling all the strings.
Right.
In English bell ringing, it's the team thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is a philosophical question, is that somehow English?
Yeah,
is that
this is
is
very
that representative of what the English are all about?
I don't know if it's... Maybe it is. The English like queuing, of course. They like waiting for their turn. So,
Right.
So yeah, every time you ring, you have to wait for your place, your turn to pull. Maybe it is, I don't know. But bell ringing as we do it is very English. There is nothing else like it in the world, I suppose, unless you go to certain places in America or Australia or so on, where I suppose it's pretty much expats that have set up that sort of tower, raised the funds and carried it on. Yeah, it's typically English. It's got its quirks. It's got its place in our heritage, I suppose.
Yeah. I was just thinking of the other things that people are really passionate around here about football, very much a team sport.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's necessarily the fact that it's just a team thing. Every society's got its team activities, whether it be rugby or football or any sort of sporting activity or whatever else. I just think it's one of those things that developed centuries ago, and the tradition's been maintained by certain people and it's been passed on. They've wanted to teach other people, and it's just one of those things that the way our church is, the way, I don't know whether it's an Anglican thing, I don't know, I really don't know, but I guess that's just our architecture, that's the way we decided to do things. And the Catholics do something different, the other religions have their way of doing things, and this is our way of doing things, I suppose.
Right. And is the beer an important part afterwards?
No, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is because wherever you go, you can walk into any tower on any night and you will be invited to ring. You can ring to your level. If you're very good, you'll be very welcomed because you can help out other people and you can ring something for somebody else. So that you don't go wrong, so they get their turn. If you're a learner, they'll always do something for you, and afterwards you'll always be invited down the pub. And it doesn't matter if you come from a different part of the country, come down the pub, have a beer afterwards, we'll talk it through and take it from there.
Excellent. You weren't in the tower tonight, but there were some tempers flared at one moment.
Did they?
When things didn't go well.
I'm glad I missed it.
I don't know why, but it was just interesting. Again,
I do. It's because we can ring better, I'd have thought. Hearing what they said tonight,
Right.
Ringing things that you can ring. You imagine you're playing a sport and you can let's say it's football, you pass to me, I pass to him, he shoots, he scores, and you do that all the time, and then all of a sudden it goes wrong. You get upset, not
Right.
because somebody is rubbish or inept, you just get upset because you know that you can do better. And I suppose here, if you make a mistake, it can be heard for maybe a mile, maybe 2 miles, maybe 3 miles if
Yeah.
the wind's in the right direction, and you know you can be upsetting the neighbours if you get it wrong.
Right.
And I think that's something that people worry about as well. And if you do that on a Sunday, when you've got people coming in for service,
Right.
yeah, it does play on your mind a bit.
Do you think people on the ground appreciate how complicated it is up in the tower?
No. They say on Sunday mornings, oh, we miss the bells if they're not being rung, or we like to hear the bells, or we appreciate what you do, but I don't really think enough people go up the tower and see what's going on. They don't actually have any idea how complicated it is. They just think it's a bell ringing after another bell, making a nice sound,
Right.
which starts the day off or ends the day.
Excellent. You said everything I hoped you would.
That's an original beam.
So So I was just beginning with the other guys. I just asked them a simple question. I asked them, "Hi, just making a movie."
Disappear.
No, that's all right. No problems. I just asked the other guys, why do you ring bells?
Why do you ring bells? I think it begins with curiosity. What's ringing all about? And then you start to learn, you get into it. And before you know it, you're hooked. And then, for me, it was just an ambition, wanting to try further, more difficult methods, learning more methods, and getting great satisfaction from it. That's the one angle, that's the personal angle. There's the other angle too, of course, which is why our bells rung at all. And it's a service to the church and the community. Yeah.
Cool. I think those guys are just moving off. We'll get a little closer. So, what you do up there is, it's very complex. You actually look at the written instructions. What's going on is an incredible mathematical feat, and I just wonder if people on the ground actually know what you're doing.
No, I don't think they do. In fact, it's not just the notation that looks complicated. It's also people don't realise how you ring either. The popular concept is that you're simply tolling the bell by pulling the rope and making the clapper swing through a small arc. As you know, what we do, we ring the bell full circle, which gives us great control over it. So I think that's the physical approach. The other thing about the notation, it looks more complicated than it is. And when you analyse it, all that's happening is every change, a number of bells are changing over their position, but you can only move one place at a time. So it looks very complex on paper, especially if all 6 or 8 lines are drawn on the paper. Mostly you only see 1 or 2 lines drawn. To somebody who's not a ringer, that may look bad enough, but in fact it's not as complicated as it looks. It is progression. Yes, it's mathematical if you like, but you don't have to be an Einstein to be able to understand that kind of maths, really. When you analyse it, it's not difficult.
I'll take your word for that.
It depends on a memory. You need a good memory.
Right.
You need to be logical. I think given those 2 attributes, to some degree, you can do it. There are people who are very erudite people who can ring very, very well. Yes, I think it helps to have a very good brain, because those are the people who can ring anything and also tell other people that are ringing with them where they're going wrong and what they should be doing. In other words, they can look at 8 people ringing and know where everybody is. They're the experts, and they're the ones whose brains give them that ability. People like me with lesser brains, we're not necessarily capable of
knowing what other ringers are doing, certainly not all 8 or all 6 of them. But you don't have to be brilliant to be able to ring, you just need to be able to be a little bit logical, I think.
So how important is teamwork then?
It's like a football match, teamwork's very important. Again, coming to ring regularly is the best thing for everyone, because you can't play a football match if only 9 players turn up. You can't ring the bells if you've got 6 or 8 if only 5 and 7 arrive. So yeah, turning up is very important. You have to have a commitment to it.
So this might be a stupid question, but I've asked the others, and I because it strikes me that bell ringing is a very English practice.
Yes.
There's nothing really like it in any other culture, and you know, I'm just thinking of Russian bell ringing, where there's a whole lot of bells and a whole lot of ropes, but one guy is masterminding the whole thing. But in English bell ringing, you rely on so many other people, and I just wonder if there's something inherently English about that setup, about you know what I mean.
Well,
I'm fishing for an answer.
It was invented here. That's the main
yeah.
thing. And the people who brought it about and developed it, I suppose, were not travellers in those days. I don't think it spread quickly to other nations until much later in the life of the bell ringing time cycle, if you like. Continental bell ringing, you've probably heard it. It's clatter. They ring the bells either by tolling them or occasionally full circle ringing, but they don't order the bells. They don't put them in a particular order. They just ring them. Russian ringing, I'm not sure I know what Russian ringing is, to be honest. I've never heard or seen it, so I can't really comment on Russian ringing, but certainly in the continental area of Europe, it's not an ordered ring at all. America, of course, have adopted our method of ringing in a number of areas. I'm not quite sure how many bells there are in America now, but there's quite a few, isn't there?
Yeah, in Canada not so much, but there is one big deal of bells right in my city in Toronto. Yeah, probably the biggest, and in Victoria as well, out on West Coast.
Yes. Canada ring, of course, there as well.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of the countries where if you like, our forefathers went to have got English style bell ringing in place. Yeah.
Just one question about the bells themselves, because again, in Russian bell ringing, the bell itself almost takes on a human personality. They baptize the bell, they name the bell. I mean, do you feel any connection to the physical object of the bell at all?
I don't think we do. I don't think bell ringers. No, I can't say that we do. No, we name the bells. Pardon me.
You do?
Yes, a lot of bells have got names, particularly famous outstanding bells in some of the big towers. You know, Great Paul, for instance. Big Ben is the name of the bell, not the tower, of course. So we name bells that are outstanding, extraordinary, different. Most bells have got inscriptions on them, dedicated to something or someone, and we do have an affinity for their maybe their history or their origin or whatever they've been created for. Maybe they are dedicated to someone, some church, or in memory of people. We've had all sorts of things like that. Yeah.
So the one last question is how you began.
How I began?
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what it was all about. Like I said earlier, curiosity. It was very simple, really. My mother was a regular church attender at Pattingham, where you've probably heard of. It's about 5 miles from here. I knew they rang the bells regularly. I didn't know anything about it. She mention that I'd expressed an interest or a desire to know a bit more about it. The next thing I had the telephone ringing. The tower captain of Patting and Bells ringing and saying, I hear you'd like to learn to ring.
Right.
Well, I hadn't expressed a desire to learn to ring at that point. I just thought I'd like to know a bit more about it. I went, he showed me all about it, I started to train and I loved it.
Right. So you'd be one of the more experienced ringers up in that tower?
I'm probably the second one after Phil, yeah.
Uh-huh. So are you a really good ringer? Because I can't tell.
I wouldn't say I was a good ringer. Like I said, the good ringers are the ones that have got the great ability to ring and know what everybody else is doing and very rarely make mistakes. I make mistakes. So no, I'm a capable ringer, I'd say that much.
Good.
Yeah. But good ringers, nobody wants to admit to being a good ringer because we can all improve.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tony. You did?
Keep calm and carry on.
Yeah.
I think that's a donation from Renee.
No, that's Tony's.
Is it?
This was mine.
Craig next week, and we'll be
That was a
losing
stamp done in the Millennium
Boy
Year
Wonders.
dedicated to.
What, this
Where's that
one?
book?
Oh, and that's
The stamp?
Yeah,
You got the sound
We got,
one?
where's that?
Oh, yeah.
That's Percy's memorial heel they did here.
Oh, nice.
I've got to get this right.
And there's Philip, you see,
Oh, yeah.
and other people.
No, is it beautiful or British?
That was in August '94.
I'll go Sunday week.
That was nice.
You
You noticed that before, right?
I didn't. I don't think you,
No, I
you
didn't.
didn't
I didn't
point it out to me.
I didn't.
Two walls of the ceiling. And the ceiling.
Show the one over here, which tells about the
Where are you going? To the left.
Let's ring some Cambridge.
No, looking at the map. Yes. It's to the left of Weymouth.
Cambridge.
It's to the right of Longridge.
He says it's the same colour as
It's on the coast.
It's the dedication to the
Well, I
bells.
walked it. I came back and got
Days.
some paper. Have you done this wall then?
Yes.
She said, of course we have. You can say it's a different colour. It's only when you turn around and look at
There's
the
a picture of the church.
they're blue.
Pink or something. Then you can
It won't have gone with carpets.
You have to have a new carpet.
Then we have to take all the furniture out of the room.
Been painting the walls.
Just about managing
I'm impressed that you, I was convinced you wouldn't do it.
Well, I was convinced he wouldn't do it.
I've done it anyway.
No.
Go on then.
Right.
Cambridge. Tell you counted you in this. Cambridge. We're going to try to touch on Cambridge again.
So if you do wrong, right, wrong, right.
While we can, we lose Craig next week.
Well, we should do
Craig next week.
Well, that's what
Cambridge.
Chris said, bring it
Obviously, James is going to start coming back on Wednesday.
Oh, I think it's in my book, isn't it? James, is it in
So
your
that's a good picture of you with two hats on.
Stephen's. You throwing bricks again?
Yeah.
Where at? The Molyneux. Wasn't one. That might be in trouble if I did that.
Come on, you two.
It was outside
He's trying to find out to pull a quarter.
It was away from. It's outside Molyneux.
Where are you
Check
going
that. Check the details. It wasn't.
Was it inside Molyneux?
No.
Right. Therefore it was outside Molyneux.
Well, right, yeah. Not right outside.
Did I say right outside?
No.
Tape.
Why?
asking a question.
They're all Tennessee gone in that site down there. Exactly. That was where they're going.
I thought it was in
Yeah, there, wasn't it? Yeah.
What do you
They never used to go like that.
do you want this one? I'll ring this one.
Oh, sorry, you want
London.
So are you chartered?
I'm
Certified.
He
said something about
I don't think London makes it much better.
Or ACCO.
They can't.
On the second.
His wife is a chartered.
Yes.
He works for Cambridge.
This is serious, Philip.
Yeah.
This is very serious.
What about the ropes?
It's probably
The one that's most serious is
Proboscis.
number 5.
the cheap rope, isn't it?
It's gone very thin. There's a tape been put round it, but it is extremely thin. In fact, a couple of good pulls.
Three of
Snap,
them.
I think.
I think it's the buses, though.
3, 5 and 8.
If you look at 5,
5.
5 that one over there on Sunday.
That's 7.
Sorry, 7. Yeah, depends where you're standing. But it's number 7.
The tenors going wearing
It
things.
is extremely thin.
That gets
on. Well, it'll take it, that's not going to
They all go there
Which
eventually.
makes it worse because it hides the
These haven't been on very long.
hides the original.
Are you waiting for Paul to ring it up?
There's no ropes like Paddingham's original ropes.
No, they're still going. The one on the tennis is still going well. When you say the original ropes, you don't mean those from 1865.
Shall we have the fan on? Are you going to be
19,
cold?
19 when?
Well,
Well,
they
they're
were put in
69.
like 1972 or something.
Oh, someone told me
You
they
can
were
get up and have a
69.
run around if you get cold, Steph.
Okay.
They lasted 20 years.
Well, they didn't need replacing, but they did. Well, it's back on the tennis got its old that rope back on and has had for I don't know, 5 years, 6 years.
Are we ready? Are you okay, Jeffrey?
Yes.
Look 2. Are you alright there, Martin?
Yes, I'm fine.
Look 2. Trouble going. Go.
It was what?
Bitter.
Not that early.
It was a whole
Not enough to
early.
cause it.
How is it possible?
That's why I-
We were dodging, weren't we, Tim?
Because you're in the wrong place.
I was when she found Jeffrey, she was on 5-6.
Oh, is that what it was?
That's what the method
Well,
is
no,
like.
that was the dodge for missing out. Right, that will account for it then. Well, I called it when I got to 7. Yes. So that's why people weren't dodging
in the right section.
That's why you weren't dodging in the right place. We were missing
have been there.
blows out.
Well, I was ringing.
You could have told everyone else.
Cambridge to start
Well,
with.
Tony didn't tell me he was ringing
Come on, Martin, it's
Yorkshire.
your turn then. Bob Major.
Ah, that would account
Are
for
you
it.
having?
Not on at the end, the first time.
No,
No,
no, the fact that I missed out 5-6. Don't stop telling me I missed out 5-6.
You missed out 5-6, Jeff.
You remember playing cards on the field?
You were dodging with me.
On the floor.
You won't dodge with me when you're not meant to.
We would just have playing cards with you on the floor.
I'll just look at you and you dodge.
in this one?
If you want to stand by a minute.
Just stand by there.
Right, try.
I was just trying to.
Playing Bob Major.
As soon as you call that Bob,
If you were there, she might think, oh, there's a lovely lady there. I will enjoy it.
She'll say for sure, yeah. When I was here before,
But you won't be here.
when I was here before, Stephanie said to me after you said